While The Wizard of Oz has made big moves in the movie industry, many actors have gotten lifelong disabilities from filming, like one actor getting their lungs coated with aluminium. But before we get deeper into what happened to these actors, do subscribe to the channel for more videos like these. The Wizard of Oz premiered on the 15th of August 1939, and it has become one of the most fan-beloved movies in cinema history. Generations of families have watched Dorothy skip the yellow brick road, and during the shooting scenes, there have been many instances where just acting has gone wrong. Before we dive deep into these disturbing stories,
You need to understand something about Hollywood in the 1930s.
back in the days, there were no unions protecting actors, no safety regulations, and not even workplace protection. Studios owned actors through contracts that made them kind of servants with almost no protection. So here is what happened to the cast, and you will be shocked to see what's on number 1. Buddy Ebsen. Buddy Ebsen was originally cast as the Scarecrow, but Ray Bolger convinced the management to let them swap roles. So, Ebsen became the Tin Man. This seemed like a simple casting change, but it would nearly cost Ebsen his life. Here is where things went south. The whole problem started with the makeup created to give the Tin Man's metallic silver appearance. The studio invented something new. They covered Ebsen's face in white clown makeup and then dusted his face with hands made from the original aluminium dust. This sounds harmful, and maybe even clever. But the reality is that it was neither. Here's what made it so deadly. The hot studio lights caused the makeup to melt several times a day, which required constant reapplication. Every time they reapplied it, Ebsen's lungs inhaled more and more toxic dust, to the point where it got coated inside his lungs like paint. This even prevented oxygen from reaching his blood. But Ebsen did not know what exactly was happening. He only felt minor cramps while filming, and, truth be told, most people would just ignore them, thinking that it was just happening due to overwork. But after 10 days of filming, he woke up in the middle of the night, thinking that he was dying, and his breath shortened with his fingers and toes curled back on themselves. He was then rushed to the hospital in a medical emergency, revealing the terrifying truth. Ebsen spent 9 of his days in an oxygen tent fighting for his life. He spent many more weeks in the hospital, followed by more time recovering at home. This experience was traumatic enough, but here's what made it worse. When the MGM studio ordered Ebsen to come back on set, an angry nurse intercepted him because the studio didn't even believe that he was actually ill. Just think about it for a moment. Here, there is a guy who almost died making film scenes for a management studio, and the man who made those shots died too. And the management was so messed up that they didn't even believe their actor was actually suffering. After this, Jack Haley took over the role of the Tin Man. And the studio didn't even tell Haley what happened to the previous actor. For the rest of his life, Ebsen complained of a breathing problem from his involvement in that movie. The aluminum exposure gave him chronic respiratory issues that never fully healed. Scarecrow's permanent scars. Ray Bolger's face was also permanently lined by wearing Scarecrow's makeup. This is not an exaggeration or just a figure of speech, but his face was literally permanently damaged by his costume. Ray thought that it would be smart to take the role of Scarecrow, and even though the actor of Tin Man got permanently scarred in his lungs, the Scarecrow's actor got permanently scarred on his face. You see, the Scarecrow's look required a full latex mask that had to be glued on Bolger's face in a long process using spirit gum adhesive. This mask was designed to look like burlap, and it took a full hour to slowly peel his makeup off at the end of each day. This mask was then thrown away, and a new one had to be reapplied to his face every single day. He required over 100 rubber bags to visit Oz's production. And imagine having your face covered in glue for hours, and then having to slowly remove that glue, knowing that you'd have to do it tomorrow. This is the level of dedication not many actors would have. After shooting wrapped up in March 1939, and Bolger removed the mask for the first time, he noticed that there was a waffle-like burlap pattern embedded on his skin. The pattern won't go away no matter what he does. This appeared on the corners of his mouth, and there were little patches of his chin that never really fully recovered from the rubber bag. For more than a year after filming concluded, Bolger was left with patterns of lines on his face that resembled his Scarecrow makeup. His daughter even confirmed that you could see the lines clearly in photographs of him that were taken years later in his life. But the physical scars weren't the only danger he faced. Do you remember the poppy field scene where Dorothy and her friends fell asleep and then rescued by magical snow? The snow was pure asbestos chrysotile fibers, and the cast was given full exposure to these fibers on set. But the Scarecrow costume was also made with a highly carcinogenic material. Asbestos is also known to cause serious illnesses, including cancer. And Bolger was diagnosed with bladder cancer in 1986 and passed away in 1987 at age 83. While it's not confirmed if that was the main cause, we can see that there definitely is a connection. Wicked Witch. Next is very disturbing. Margaret Hamilton played the Wicked Witch of the West in one of the most iconic villain performances in the entirety of the film industry. But her experience on the set involved literal torture through fire and toxic chemicals. Hamilton had to go through a full-body green makeup that was copper-based to get that iconic look. You see, copper is toxic to humans, and having it painted all over your skin creates serious health risks that people from that era didn't even care about. The makeup couldn't be ingested, so Hamilton could drink only through straws and couldn't eat at all while wearing makeup. The green color stayed on her skin for months after the filming ended, and no matter how many times she watched it, it just stayed there. But that's not even the worst moment, because it came during a special effects scene where the Wicked Witch vanishes in a burst of flame and smoke. Hamilton was supposed to go through a trapdoor, as fire and smoke were released, but the door wasn't working and failed to open. This caused smoke and fire to be released while she was present on stage. The intensity of heat resulted in second-degree burns on her face and third-degree burns on her hand. But here's where it gets even more horrifying. Since she had freshly burned skin and was covered in copper-based makeup, she had to have the wounds thoroughly cleansed with acetone to prevent any toxins from entering her bloodstream. So imagine having severe burn marks, then having alcohol poured all over your body to remove toxic makeup. This pain might have been unbearable, and she needed around 6 weeks off to recover. When she returned, she made one demand. She insisted that there would not be any fireworks used. And to that, the studio agreed. Before we move to the next big tragedy, do subscribe to the channel and ring the bell icon for more videos like these. Cowardly Lion. Next up is Burt Layer, who played the Cowardly Lion. And even though his injuries weren't as dramatic as burns or poisoning, suffering at the hands of others, his daily life experience was a torture in its own. Laher's costume for the Cowardly Lion was made of real lion fur, which was hot and heavy for most points. It weighed over 92 pounds, which is quite heavy. Imagine wearing a 100-pound fur coat in summer heat. Now, add that to the fact that this was filmed in Technicolor, which required very bright lighting studios that were hot on their own. Laher also had to wear a huge mask, making it difficult for him to see and even breathe. He even required frequent breaks and battled severe dehydration throughout filming. He even said that he sweated so much that his costume was drenched at the end of the film each day. The costume department had to put on a lion costume in a commercial clothes dryer every evening so they would be dry the next morning. Think about it for a moment. Laher is a regular actor who is getting 100 pounds for a costume over him every single day while battling intense heat while filming some of the most iconic movie scenes. Dorothy. Next up is none other than Judy Garland, who played Dorothy. What happened to her backstage is perhaps the most tragic story of them all.
She was only a 16-year-old girl when she began filming.
And the studio's treatment of her was definitely not fair, while simultaneously destroying her life. Garland hadn't been the top choice to play Dorothy, and studio heads wanted Shirley Temple, who was 6 years younger. However, Temple lacked the vocal range, so when Garland got the role, executives said she had to look even younger. She was even required to have her chest taped down and squeezed into tight corsets to make her body appear younger and even more childlike. However, the physical restrictions were nothing compared to what they did to her with drugs. The studio started giving her sleeping pills to keep her going through the film's taxing shooting schedule. This meant taking drugs with a stronger effect than drinking coffee and sleeping pills to keep her going at all times. The studio even controlled what she ate. She was put on a strict diet and followed, and was forced to eat only chicken soup and coffee while being given cigarettes too. This made her appetite go away. Think about this for a moment. She was just 16 years old, a child, and powerful adults who were in control of the whole management were controlling her like she was some kind of toy for them. When she was 14, filming her first feature movie, MGM even told her to look like a fat little pig with pigtails on screen. And she was put on her first of many diets that she had to go through. The psychological damage from the verbal abuse, combined with the physical, is something she never really recovered from. The drugs given to Garland even led her to a lifelong addiction that resulted in multiple suicide attempts before she died of an accidental overdose at just 47 years old. She even spent her entire adult life battling addiction that started when studio executives forced pills on her as a teenager. The trauma of The Wizard of Oz followed her to her grave, which is just sad to see. Despite all the suffering of these actors, MGM marketed the visit to Oz as a magical experience, and for decades, the public knew nothing about some of the most horrific accidents happening in the background. The film was also nominated for 6 Academy Awards, and won 2 for original score, and for the song Over the Rainbow. It became one of the most beloved movies of all time, but at the expense of many deaths, lifelong trauma, and eternal pain. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel for videos where we expose the darkest sides of Hollywood.